Hey guys, I am Big and Scary. I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay, this time featuring in our top left-hand side, Ding. It's all you gotta wonder with the Y. What exactly are you going for with that? Because you gotta pronounce it kind of like an I, but then it's like dingy. I don't know. Ding is in our top left corner. Our red Terran in the bottom right. We have DarkwingDuck, a classic blue Protoss. Darkwing is in low masters and Dynge is in very high diamond. So approximate skill level, we're on Antigua Shipyard. It's a Terran versus Protoss. Personally, I'm rooting for DarkwingDuck just because it's hilarious. I love the reference. I don't know if you guys ever watched that cartoon growing up. I didn't really watch it. I'm aware of its existence, and that alone is enough for me to root for our blue Protoss player. Traditional opening coming out of him. The first pylon's down. No scouting probe just yet. No super early gas or anything like that. Chrono boosting out those first probes. Supply depot's already gone down for Dynge, and he's working on that first barracks. So I don't know. I know Dynge is not the right way to say it, but I can't help it because Dynge is just it's an entertaining word to say. It's an entertaining map to play on too. Antigua Shipyard's been around for a very long time. You've got the natural expo on the low side with a very, very medium-sized ramp leading down to the incredibly open area, kind of chopped up by that little doodad right there, making it so the death ball has a little bit of chokes that it has to pass through. The third is incredibly exposed, especially with the destructible debris opening off into the even more open area. It's just a nightmare to take. Fortunately, we don't have any very close by air spawns. Sometimes you'll have them spawn here and here, and that means that the third, for the person who gets up on the top right side, got kind of shafted. Not much good to be had there when you're that close, especially if you're against a Terran who can drop all day long. First refinery is down as the first barracks finishes, immediately starting up with that first Marine coming out of that barracks. Gateway's already done. Nothing being produced just yet for DarkwingDuck, but his cybernetics core's on the way. There goes the Zealot. Absolutely fantastic. Beginning to bank up that gas. Looks like he was saving for an assimilator too. He had that probe kind of positioned right by the Vespene Geyser. What is he going to be doing with that double gas? I don't know. It doesn't signify a super early expansion coming out of here. Probably prudent. Dynge is throwing down that first bunker. Very traditionally placed just on the top of the ramp, making motions like he really wants to take an early expo. Also has a reactor down, which tells me that there's probably not going to be a large swell of harassment. Oh man, throwing down two barracks too. I wonder why. I wonder why he's getting that reactor. I mean, traditionally you'd have plenty of Marines to hold off any sort of aggression if you're just doing the three barracks. With the addition of the reactor, is he going to be throwing on a factory right with it and do some sort of reactor hellion? If that is true, why hasn't the factory been started already? I don't know. He's got plenty of gas, not a lot of money, but he could have. One of these barracks could have turned into a factory pretty easily. And the tech lab just makes more sense because you really do want to get started on that tech if you're going to be aggressive. I think this is just him being a little bit more passive than normal. Twilight Council being positioned by DarkwingDuck in a very weird location. The type of place that you would not expect a scan to go down. Signifies maybe some sort of cheese build. Could we be seeing early blink would be fantastic, but it could also be a DT rush. We'll have to keep an eye out on that. Also, double tech labs going up for Dynge. This is what I was missing. Absolutely fantastic, actually. Buying time because he's producing Marines two at a time out of the barracks. He can afford to throw down two different tech labs on the other barracks and immediately start up on that stem and combat shield. So wow, he's actually going to be very aggressive early on. Will he wait long enough to get up that first expo, or will he just be pushing out with a large swell of Marines? Only time will tell. I mean, he's not making the CC, so what it tells me is that he's going to wait right for that combat shield to finish, and then he'll be up on the door and wait for that stem to finish and push forward. One way or another, he's going to have plenty of Marines to be aggressive and to take control of some of the locations of the enemies. You know, just the general map. He's just going to be looking at that general map, have nice map control. First sell it out for DarkwingDuck is taking just a stroll around the park. Neither player has actually successfully scouted the other player's base. Darkwing knows he's on the top right corner, but with two stalkers on the field and a robotics bay on the way, actually just now finishing. For DarkwingDuck, he's going to be a little bit ahead on tech. There goes the Twilight Council starting up on that blink, so that's going to be absolutely fantastic. On a map like Antigua where you can blink up to the top, blink back to the bottom, and kind of harass both mineral lines, it can be incredibly aggressive. However, Darkwing is going to be in a very, very rough shape as he sees these units being basically walking past the Zealot and getting the free some free hits in, but the Marauder is just so tanky, can take quite a lot of damage. This combat shield is going to be finishing, stem is going to be finishing, and Darkwing is in a very, very bad shape. He's going to have that observer out, but all that observer is going to tell him is that unless he micros absolutely perfectly against these stemmed Marauders, those Stalkers are going to be chewed alive. And yeah, there's only a handful on, only 3 on the field right now, but remember there's two tech labs back at home, and they're producing those Marauders 2 at a time. Initially that gas was chewed up into tech. Man, this is going to be an incredibly intimidating push by Dynge, and I have absolutely no idea how Darkwing could possibly expect to hold it back with just that moderate amount of Stalkers right now. He doesn't have any sentries on the field right now. He does have nice positioning of the Stalkers up on the high ground so they can kind of rail down like that, but the Marines are just pushing in. There goes the stem. All 4 of those Stalkers taking massive amounts of damage. Oh, but they're pulling back just fast enough. Nice pullback, actually. Those Marines pushing in, immediately unpowering the robotics facility. The Zealots are going to town. The stem has expired, and now here comes the secondary stem. Those Marauders coming forward, definitely dealing quite a large blow. We got 5 Stalkers versus only the 6 Marauders now and 8 Marines on the field. Those Stalkers have been incredibly cost effective because of that blink upgrade, and Darkwing Duck really didn't take that much damage. Economically speaking, 20 against 21, Dynge really can't afford to continue this harassment because the defender's advantage, he's just going to continue to make those Stalkers and hold off on this. So ultimately a bust, man. Dynge was in absolute perfect shape to do some massive damage with this. He had an excellent unit composition, perfect upgrades, finishing just right on time. But Darkwing Duck, man, some nice blink control. Good sacrifice there by Dynge to get that kill on the Stalker. But now with 4 Stalkers with blink, and blink's been exposed, and he's going to know that that observer is there, so he's going to know to protect the side of his base. But man, I am so impressed at how cost effective that battle was for Darkwing Duck, because I would have thought that those Marines would have swung down south and engaged those probes and absolutely chewed them apart. But now that the Marauder force is kind of gotten a little bit more massive. Remember, there was only 4 or 5 in that initial push. These Marauders continue to be very cost effective against the Stalkers, and yes, the number of Stalkers has definitely dramatically risen. I mean, there are quite a lot of Stalkers out on the field right now, 10 of them. But I can't help but think that this is Darkwing Duck kind of pushing his luck, moving in with the Stalkers. That stem has completely expired. There goes the Marauder, stemming very quickly. Blink's still not on cooldown just yet. Oh, disastrous blow to Darkwing Duck. Oh my goodness, that resources lost tab completely stabilized right now. Dynge with the clutch scan taking down that observer. Excellent instincts right there. Then we look back at that economy. 24 over 23, both players playing it very close to the chest. Dynge is taking up his own CC, but Darkwing Duck not just yet. I think he really wants to use this technological advantage right now. He's pushing forward with those Stalkers, but man, the Marauder slow is done, and those Stalkers do not stand a chance if they get hit. Even with blink, this is not going to be a cost-effective engagement. The first one worked for him because he was capable of shelling down from the high ground, was capable of kiting backwards, but one stem from these Marines and these Marauders will absolutely demolish those Stalkers. Darkwing Duck kind of pecking them back because they've been overstemmed to the point, but now that 2 Marauders are in the bunker, I think that these Stalkers really have no choice but to pull back. Dynge's going to be working on getting that Expo up, as well as working on getting the starports up so he can actually heal up his Marauder heavy force. The Observer is once again arrived on scene. Some nice play there by Darkwing Duck, pushing down, drawing Dynge's forces out of position, sniping down both tech labs. He's not going to be having to deal with too many Marauders anymore, at least for the time being. Also pushing forward, doing some damage to the reactor, but I don't think he can afford to stick around too much longer. One of the Stalkers goes down, and the rest of them blink back to safety. 8 Stalkers now on the field right now. Darkwing Duck playing very much a cat and mouse game, man. If he gets caught one time, if his army goes down at all, he will be in a hell of a bad shape. But again, man, those 10 Stalkers being so ballsy, once again blinking up to the high ground, and while their blink is on cooldown, the Marauders push forward and doing absolute devastating damage. But remember, that Marauder protection has been cut completely off. Those 2 tech labs need to get rebuilt. Oh, and that reactor's actually burning down. Will Dynge allow it to go down completely? I don't know. And Darkwing Duck still has not taken an Expo just yet. Yeah, he's been doing quite a lot of damage. He's got 4 probes right now queued up on his Nexus, but really he just needs to cancel 3 of those probes and build the Nexus down on the low ground. Even though he can't really afford to defend it if Dynge really wanted to push out. I think Dinge's more afraid of a counterattack coming out of Darkwing Duck instead of actually thinking about doing any actual aggression. The Observer on a patrol path just to see if there's anything major going to be leaving the ground, but this is where the real damage is being done. Even though they're pretty much on an equal amount of bases, the Protoss is going to be getting mined out eventually, and when that happens, Dinge's going to be on a massive step ahead. I mean, look at that production tab. Nothing being built for Protoss. Starport almost finished with that reactor being added onto the factory. In a couple minutes, Darkwing Duck's not going to have any chance at all in ending or even staying in this game, especially with those Marines and Marauders are going to be able to follow behind those Stalkers if they decide to load up in that medevac. The Nexus finally being built for Darkwing Duck, but I feel like it's a little too late. Dinge's going to begin to heal up his Marine and Marauder force once this Starport cranks out enough of those medevacs. This is rapidly spiraling out of control, and it's a pity because, man, these Stalkers have been incredibly cost-effective. Once again, the blink on cooldown, all 5 of those Stalkers get crushed, with the exception of one. Lucky God. But at the same time, a poke from the front, single Immortal in tow with 2 sentries. Will they throw down a force field on the ramp? They do. Absolutely fantastic. All these SCVs are in for a world of hurt. How much energy does he have on these sentries? Enough for 3 more force fields, and that's enough to hold these guys in bay forever, actually. And this Immortal and these Zealots desperately need to go into town on those SCVs. For the time being, there's no Stalkers being added into this mix. Once again, Darkwing Duck being very clever in his engagements. Once again, just so cost-effective, so incredibly cost-effective. He lost 1 or 2 Zealots, and the mining time, especially being lost by Dynge, is going to be making him feel very nervous. And he really wants to push out now. He really wants to do some damage, and I think that's the right call. He's got a huge ball. Unfortunately for him, this pylon still exists, and that tech to blink up to the high ground definitely still exists. Now there are sentries out on the field. I think that the force fields are going to be incredibly powerful in the next engagement. As long as Dynge can keep his force into one big group, I don't see any reason why he can't push out and actually, end this game right now. But this is definitely going to be the game-deciding battle right here. Not that the other ones weren't equally important. We have another robotics bay on the way, a second Immortal being added into the mix. We don't see any more sentries than the 3 that we've already noticed are out on the field. And Dynge just checking the third, see if he's really far behind, but in reality he's not. I mean, yeah, he lost a little bit of mining time, but he's on 2 bases that are fully saturated. Here comes the big push. Fantastic force fields funneling to all of them, just enough of the Marines so that the Zealots can actually get in there and do some battle. Some just fantastic positioning for Darkwing Duck, cutting Dynge's force in half, and then Dynge obliges him. He cuts his own force in half, pushes with the Marauders up into the natural, as well as dropping 2 small groups of Marines and Marauders, but it looks like half of them weren't actually dropped in the base. They were dropped behind that little wall. Oh, that's absolutely disastrous for Dynge. You losing that entire group of guys, and now the resources lost have once again neck and neck. However, this drop has gone completely unanswered. Took down a gateway, unpowered the robotics facility again. Remember, there's a second one over on the side. This is going to get cleaned up, actually retreating with pretty much half health. At the same time, they found the proxy pylon. There was no counter aggression. Didn't succeed in taking out anything major back at the home base, but there is a large standing force from Dynge. He's going to have to start relying on drop play, I think, which maybe will work in his advantage. Darkwing Duck has proven that he's incredibly good at multi-prong harassment, and I think that that's going to transfer over to him dealing with multi-prong harassment very well. On the 2 more barracks being added into this heavy bio mix, working on the +1/+1 for Terran, and we also have a 3rd CC being built over on the top left side. On the other side of things, Darkwing Duck getting scanned, just seeing that he was supply blocked for a period of time. That Nexus is fully saturated now, and it's going to begin rolling in the minerals, but not quite the gas. Needs to work on that. He's got 2 assimilators on the way. Probably needs to be thinking about taking a 3rd on the back of that excellent engagement. 4 Immortals out right now. Plenty of Zealots. Do they have charge? No, they don't. Probably going to be working on that research. Yes, there it is. Excellent. Absolutely fantastic. I really hate to see that the Stalker production has stopped, because Darkwing Duck has been incredibly powerful with that harassment, and that's definitely something that needs to continue. However, I can understand that he's beginning to work on that Zealot Immortal Sentry mix. It's good against Zerg. Why not use it against Terran? You have 2 different Medevacs moving out at the same time. Dynge's moving out with his main force. Is going to be poking again once at the front door. The observer is well positioned to see that one, but the other observer leaving just to the left side of Darkwing's base is going to miss Dynge's drop, which is positioning over here right at the third of the bottom left expansion. Everything is well positioned. I mean, we have an excellent concave. Dynge's main force is going to have a very hard time breaking up through this ramp. However, if the economic damage is done, I mean, check out the minimap. There they go. I'm switching over to the income tab so you can see the harvester count pushing forward. Dynge not over pushing with his force. The force fields only catch maybe a quarter of the units that they could. At the same time, the drop's going down. Charge is not going to finish. It gets canceled. Fantastic play there by DarkwingDuck, kind of mitigating the economic loss that he's doing. And then as soon as the small force from DarkwingDuck arrives, Dynge pulls up and leaves. Wow, look at those force fields capturing everything there. The medevacs with a hot pickup from Dynge, definitely getting that achievement and pulling back. Really nice play from both players. The force fields were immaculate, really capturing all of the Terran forces. Dynge, though, has managed to keep his drop completely alive. Everything is hurt, but still alive. And man, if they decide to come back in, if they decide to pick off this robotics facility, it's going to be bad news for DarkwingDuck. However, he's got a large force still positioned inside. Is definitely going to be dealing with that drop-off, not before they do no damage really to the robotics facility. Yeah, they took out a couple of those shields, but not nearly enough to cancel the Colossus production. And now that those Colossus are getting out on the field, we see the Twilight Council is being constructed once again, probably because he's thinking about getting Storm rather than getting Charge again. But you know, Charge is going to be good. Oh, here comes another push. We don't see any force fields. One of those sentries goes down, and these sentries have got to be getting low on energy, actually. Yeah, this guy doesn't have any energy. That one doesn't have any energy, so there's no more force fields. And with that, the entire Protoss force gets surrounded. All of those immortals go down. At what cost, though? I mean, they've been doing quite a lot of damage throughout that entire force, but now Dynge is pushing forward. Oh, but what's this? Colossus that don't have range, taking quite a lot of damage from that small burst of fire from those Marines. And at the same time, the drop once again, this time succeeding, taking down the robotics facility. Dynge pushing forward to the win, and it's Dynge. He's pushing into the Nexus, which is completely unsaturated now. But DarkwingDuck, once again, this is what I was talking about with that economic disadvantage that he's now in. Is he never expanded. He took, yeah, his first Nexus, but man, everything is being pulled now, including Promes. DarkwingDuck knows that this is going to be the make or break, and really I feel like this is going to be a break. The Viking production is on the way. We have 2 more being added into the mix, already 1 out on the field, and these Colossus do not have range. Frankly, the meat shield is not nearly enough. A misclick from DarkwingDuck allows his first Colossus to go down. There goes a massive amount of force fields, but all that does is funnels the probes into the front. Here comes Dynge pulling all of his SCVs from the line, all of them getting chewed up. What a meat grinder. But on the back of that, the Terran war machine is relatively intact, and all the Colossus have gone down. It's up to the Marauders. Have they stemmed too much? Will they be taking too much damage? No. One more volley, all of the Immortals fall. With that, DarkwingDuck taps out with his entire base being destroyed with a counterattack from Dynge. Oh man, and this drop just never got answered. Poor DarkwingDuck. He did so well with that drop play and the blink play, and it was absolutely fantastic. But then a couple of misclicks where he just blinked up here, and then while the blink was on cooldown, he was in range of that starport, and Dynge, he knew exactly what he was doing. He pushed in, stemmed with his Marauders, closed that gap really, really quickly, and then as soon as they blinked down to the bottom, his Marauders were right there just to get one more volley, clear out a couple of them, and with that, DarkwingDuck kind of lost the advantage that he had. He should have known that Dynge was sacrificing stuff to be that aggressive, and what he was sacrificing was his CC early. Once DarkwingDuck held that first attack at this gate, he should have just thrown down a Nexus on the back of that Stalker aggression, so that if it did go poorly, if he didn't do too much damage to the economy, and he didn't, he could have held on, to the small lead that he had. He could have held on to the economic lead, and with that, I think this game would have completely changed. It was a fantastic game, though. I'm assuming Dynge posted it. I apologize for butchering your name. Poor DarkwingDuck. Next time. Hey guys, that's it for me. If you have a game you want me to cast, you could PM me here or on Reddit. One way or another, I will see you guys later. I am Big and Scary. Bye.